Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Appreciate you jumping on. Which company recently said Bitcoin will eventually reach $3 million per coin? And when will it happen? Stay tuned to find out who it was. Let's take a look at pricing before we dive into some news. And great news here as Bitcoin is on the way up over 4% in the last 24 hours, sitting at 71,678. This is the first time it's been over 70,000 in quite some time. Ethereum sitting at 2,634, Solana sitting at 179, and XRP sitting at 52 cents, up 1.44% over the last 24 hours. Good to see us moving in the right direction. Of course, normally those altcoins will start to boom after Bitcoin begins taking off. So we will see what happens. Let's jump into some news. First, here coming from notfinancialadvice.crypto. He says, I share at BC Backer's opinion on how to feel about meme coins coming to the XRPL. Best summation I've heard. If you don't know, recently in the last 2 weeks, First Ledger on the XRPL ledger has kicked off meme coins, much like Solana did in the past, and Ethereum. Take a listen to this short video.
In the last 2 weeks, meme coins have become tradable over here on the XRP ledger. And over here on firstledger.net, you can see these. Now, there's a lot of mixed opinions on meme coins. And some people, I guarantee, who are watching right now are turning their head and saying, I can't believe we're even talking about this. I'm going to tell you something right now. Okay, I'm going to talk to you like a big boy or a big girl. It does not matter what you care. Look at that. That is what matters. There's a segment of this market who does care. There are participants and users in this market who do care, and it is exploding activity on the XRP ledger. It is drawing in new people, it is contributing money to the automatic market makers, and it is exploding automatic market maker volume, creating a DeFi market over here on XRP now. You're getting social media attention while drawing in new users and money pouring into the automatic market makers, with people who are contributing to the pools exploding as well and making money from contributing to the TVL or to the automatic market maker. In the last 2 weeks, meme coins.
So he's talking about this because I think some people in the community are upset that they're engaged in meme coins. But the fact of the matter is it's bringing attention and dollars onto the XRPL, which is exactly what we want to see. We want to see more people being aware of this, finding out how to use it. If they're using it to, bet on meme coins or invest in meme coins, that's their prerogative. But it's certainly bringing more attention, and those dollars, a certain percentage of them, will remain on the XRPL even once it's out of meme coins. So it's a good thing, in my opinion. Moving on to subjective views here, we have subjective view says, this reminded me of when at Digital Asset Buy said he was once told that XRP was designed to prevent World War III. This is William C. Dudley, chair of Bretton Woods Committee. Now, if you don't know what Bretton Woods Committee is, Bretton Woods was established around in the 1940s to govern global financial relations. It established two main institutions. One, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, designed to oversee exchange rates, support nations in financial distress, and stabilize currencies. And number two, it helped establish the World Bank, which created a fund to reconstruction and development projects in war-torn and developing nations. These institutions are still in existence today and play critical roles in the global economic stability. So this gentleman from Bretton Woods is speaking about the potential of a new set of financial systems and how it might come to fruition. Take a listen.
little bit. But I want to ask you about sort of another important multilateral institution that we've referenced here today, the BIS and the FSB. What is your view on how effective those institutions are and how fit for purpose those two institutions are in sort of meeting these modern global challenges?
So I think both the BIS and the FSB have done a really good job when a problem has been identified, that the G20 says this is the problem and we want you to fix it. And then they have the mandate to go forward and fix it, and they have a lot of support. So the examples I used before, the transition of LIBOR to secured overnight funding rate and other, repo rates in other countries, central clearing of over these derivatives. But it's harder when it's a perspective issue, because, as I said earlier, the BIS and the FSB can only do things by consensus. They don't. It's not. They're not. They don't have quite the same governance model as the IMF and the World Bank, and so it's harder to get things done in a perspective. It's sort of like it's the army of volunteers. It's the army of the willing. A good example of this is what's happening in terms of cross-border payments. The BIS is basically saying, who has an instant payment system that would like to knit your instant payment system together with other countries' instant payment? And the countries that put their hands up, the BIS says, let's go, and they take it forward. And they're hoping that demonstration project, Project Nexus, which is India, Thailand, Singapore, a couple other countries, Malaysia, they're hoping that if they can do that successfully, then they'll encourage other people to come on board because they'll see the benefits of that action. But it's hard to do under the existing governance framework because it's all about consensus, and that's harder to achieve in peacetime than in wartime. Because it's all about consensus, and that's harder to achieve in peacetime than in wartime.
So good find there by Subjective Views, and we'll be hearing from him again in a little bit. But clearly this gentleman, William C. Dudley, knows a little bit about the financial system, and he spoke to cross-border payments, and many believe Ripple is moving slowly, but they are moving, and they do have these partnerships, which many believe will turn XRP into a very special token. Let's move on to Watcher.guru here. He says Justin Van Eck projects Bitcoin will be worth $3 million and used as a global reserve asset by the year 2050. Take a listen.
We have a model that assumes that by 2050, this is very long term, that Bitcoin becomes a reserve asset that's used in global trade and held by global central banks at a very modest 2% weight. And in that model, we arrive at a $3 million price target for Bitcoin. Now, that sounds extreme, but that's a 16% compound annual growth rate for a couple decades. That's not really that extreme. So into the millions over the medium term is a high conviction call. We have a model that assumes that by 2050, this.
There you have it, Van Eck. Again, it's only 16 compounding, 16% compounding over that period, and it's a long period, so it doesn't seem that unrealistic per Van Eck. We shall see. Back to Subjective Views and the chair of Bretton Woods. He calls the Finternet a bold vision and touches on the following: global fast payments architecture, Project Nexus, 24/7 real-time gross settlement, unified ledger, and Project Agora. Let's listen to a little more from Mr. Dudley.
You are thinking about the second report in this series that the working group is going to release, and you're looking at the global fast payments architecture. So I thought maybe you would share a little bit with the audience today about kind of what problem, what hurdles the group is looking at, and maybe some of the early thinking around the recommendations.
So the G20 has looked at global payments, and they concluded that they were costly, complex, slow, and inefficient. And so they set some targets for the FSB and the CPMI, which is the group at the BIS that thinks about payment matters, to try to make progress to reduce the cost, increase inclusivity. And there's been some progress, but I don't think they're going to meet their objectives in terms of where they hope to get the cost of payments by 2027. The good news is there's a lot of good work going on. There have been a number of countries that have been very successful in developing instant payment systems, not just developing them, but also getting a take-up by their citizenry. Brazil, India, some of the other some of the Southeast Asian countries. They have instant payment systems that aren't just there in theory, but they're there in practice, and they're actually core to the payment systems. In other places, like the United States, like Europe, there are instant payment systems, but their share of use in terms of domestic payments is de minimis. And so it's a little hard to have an integrated global instant payment system if people in big regions like Europe and the US are not using them. So I think one conclusion of the paper is we got to figure out a way to make the instant payment systems in the important economies of the world more successful. I think the BIS has done a lot of great work through the BIS Innovation Hubs. They have a project called Project Nexus that actually is really, I think, very well thought through in terms of how you would actually knit these national instant payment systems together. They propose they I think conclude correctly that a hub and spoke system is a lot better than a whole bunch of individual countries trying to manage bilateral relationships with other countries, because obviously the number of linkages, if you do it bilaterally, goes up geometrically relative to just linking to a central hub. So I think the BIS is very much on the right track. But the problems are really getting the national instant payment systems viable. And two, making sure that the central banks keep moving towards 24/7 real-time gross settlement. Because if you don't have real-time gross settlement, you're always going to be left with some residual liquidity settlement risk in your instant payment systems. So that's another aspect where we need to do a little bit more work. There's another much broader vision that we're going to consider in the paper, which is the idea of a finternet. So an internet that's for financial assets more broadly. The idea of the finternet, this is something that Augustine Carstens has written and talked a lot about, who's the general manager of the BIS. This is where you basically take a financial asset and you represent it as a token, and the tokens would be able to be settled on a unified ledger. And those tokens would actually be able to embed smart contracts that would execute automatically when a given set of conditions was triggered. It's a very different regime than just linking instant payment systems together. It's probably a more bold vision, but we're probably 20 years away from that if everything goes really, really well over the next coming decade. So it's more of a vision than, and we don't really have a path to going there. Although the BIS has also been pretty important here. They have a project Agora where they've basically partnered with the IFI to bring together some private banks to figure out how could you actually take this forward. So I think we're making some progress, but the progress is slower than what is desired.
So great find there by Subjective Views. He talked about instant payments. He talks about things being connected. We obviously know about FedNow. We know crypto is becoming more and more popular. We know what some of these cryptos do. We know about smart contracts with Ethereum coming to XRPL. We know about the RLUSD. We know about Circle. We know about Tether. I mean, a lot of these things are shaping up already. And again, how much is he willing to tell us? Is he willing to tell us it's closer than it actually is, or is he hiding things? That's the question. Moving on to Versan here from Black Swan Capitalist. He says Putin said there was no alternative to SWIFT, yet in 2022, SWIFT began integrating Ripple's protocol, favoring XRP's utility. And now documents from the Central Bank of Russia link XRP to Project mBridge and the BRICS payment frameworks. XRP is the level playing field, per Versan from Black Swan here. Take a listen to this question and answer from BRICS 2024, which occurred in Russia just last week. Take a listen.
Anton Vernitsky, Channel 1. More on the financial interaction of BRICS countries. Was a common investment platform and the creation of an alternative payment system discussed? Was there talk of an alternative to SWIFT? Thank you.
Спасибо. Значит, что касается SWIFT.
As for SWIFT and some alternatives, we have not created and are not creating any alternatives for anyone. Nevertheless, the issue is very important today. One of the key problems is the issue of settlements. Therefore, we are moving towards the use of national currencies, which is well known. Regarding settlement systems, we are using the already established Russian Financial Information Exchange system created by the Central Bank of Russia.
Gonna leave it there for time's sake. But again, think about when you watch some of these videos, are they going to tell us everything that's going on? Odds are probably not. So I think we're probably further ahead than a lot of these folks are mentioning, but If you're invested, stay patient. Only invest what you can afford to lose. This is not financial advice, of course. Do your own research. Like and subscribe. Follow me on X at Orlando Mott, and we will see you on the flip side.